Fall forward, spring back.
Fall forward, spring back.
It was the first Friday in November. Daylight saving time ended that weekend. Remember to set your clocks back an hour on Saturday night, said Nola's teacher. Spring forward, fall back.
It was the first Friday in November. Daylight saving time ended that weekend. Remember to set your clocks back an hour on Saturday night, said Nora's teacher. Spring forward, fall back.
Why save daylight? Many countries use a daylight saving program during their warmer months when the days are longer. Why bother? In order to save energy. By moving the clock ahead an hour during these months, sunlight lasts longer into the evening. It was the first Friday in November.
Why save daylight? Many countries use the daylight saving program during their warmer months when the days are longer. What bother? In order to save energy, by moving the clock ahead an hour. During these months, sunlight lasts get longer into the evening.
Daylight saving time ended that week. Nola didn't pay much attention. At 8 years old, she'd been late so many times, she figured she'd go on that way forever. She'd be late for her first job, her college graduation, her wedding. And if you like parades, he added, don't forget the one this Sunday morning at 10 o'clock.
Nora didn't pay much attention. At 8 years old, she'd been late so many times. She figured she'd go on the way forever. She'd be late for her first job, her college graduation, her wedding. And if you like parades, he added, don't forget the one this Sunday morning at 10 o'clock.
Nola had never been to the fall parade. That night at dinner, she asked her mom if they could go. I won't be here Sunday, Mom reminded her, but I'll bet Pablo could take you. Pablo was Nola's big brother, 16 and always sleepy. He would be in charge while their mom was away.
Nora had never been to the Third parade. That night at dinner, Sue asked her mom if they could go. I won't be here Sunday, Mom reminded her. But I'll bet Pablo could take you. Pablo was Nora's big brother, 16 and always sleepy. He would be in charge while their mom was away.
Don't forget, Mom said, daylight saving time ends this weekend.
Don't forget, Mom said, daylight saving time ends this weekend.
I don't really get it, Nola confessed. Are we actually saving daylight or just moving it around?
I don't really get it, Nora confessed.
Mom smiled. Moving it
around daylight or
she said.
Moving it around?
In November, we set our clocks back an hour. So the sun rises earlier in the morning, or seems to, and sets earlier in the evening. In March, we do just the opposite, and the sun sets later. Crazy stuff, Pablo yawned.
Nora's mom smiled. Moving it around, she said. In November, we set our clocks back an hour, so the sun rises earlier in the morning on seems to and sets early in the evening. In March, we do just the opposite and the sun sets last. Crazy stuff, Pablo yawned.
Saturday morning, their mom kissed them both goodbye and drove to the airport. That night, as Nola got in bed, she thought back to her teacher's words. Spring forward, fall back. Or was it fall forward, spring back? Fall forward sounded better, so she set her clock forward an hour. Just like that, it was past her bedtime. She was late again.
Saturday morning, their mom kissed them both goodbye and drove to the airport. That night, as Nora got in bed, she thought back to her teacher's words. Spring forward, fall back. Or was it far forward, spring back? Fall forward sounded better. So she set her clock forward an hour. The strike that it was past her bedtime. She was late again.
Time, Nola sighed, is not my friend.
Time, Nora sighed, is not my friend.
Nola overslept the next morning. When she woke, her clock said 10:15. She ran and rustled her brother out of bed.
Nora overslept the next morning. When she woke, her clock said 10:15. She ran and lifted her brother out of bed.
No. When they reached the parade route, though, there was no parade. It seemed they'd missed the whole thing. They turned and headed home. On their way back, they spotted their neighbor, Frank. He was climbing around next to an 8-foot bright orange pumpkin. They walked over for a closer look.
When they reached the parade road, there was no parade. It seemed they'd missed the whole thing. They turned and headed home. On their way back, they spotted their neighbor Frank. He had climbed around next to an 8-foot bright orange pumpkin. They walked over for a closer look.
Frank saw them and broke into a grin. "The early bird gets the worm," he cried. Nola and Pablo looked at each other. Pablo had never been early for anything in his life either. "Climb on up here, Sonny, and give me a hand with this float," shouted Frank. "You too, Missy."
Frank saw them and broke into a grin. "The early bird gets the worm," he cried. Nora and Pablo looked at each other. Pablo had never been early for anything in his life either. "Climb on up here, Sonny, and give me a hand with this float," shouted Frank. "You too, Missy."
Frank put them both to work for more than an hour. When they were done, his float looked fantastic. "So," Pablo said at last, "I guess you're all ready for next year's parade." Frank put them both to work for more than an hour.
Frank put them both to work for more than an hour. When they were done, his fruit looked fantastic. So Pablo said, "At last, I guess you are all ready for next year's parade."
When they were done, his float looked. Next year, Frank cried. Try
Frank cried, "Try
this year. Nola and Pablo blinked in confusion.
Nora and Pablo blinked in confusion.
Wait a minute, Nola said. Wasn't the parade at 10 o'clock today? Was at 10, Frank cried. Will be at 10 is more like it. He thrust his wristwatch toward them. It said 9:30. Nola laughed for joy. I fell forward, she said. I needed to fall back.
Wait a minute, Nora said. Nora said, "Wasn't the parade at 10 o'clock today?" Today? Was at 10. Wait a minute, Nora said. "Wasn't the parade at 10 o'clock today?" Was at 10? Frank cried. "Will be at 10 is more like it." The trust his wristwatch toward them. It said 9:30. Nora laughed for joy. I fell forward, she said. I needed to fall back.
She had sprung forward an hour when everybody else had fallen back an hour. That meant she and Pablo were now 2 hours ahead of everybody else. For once in their lives, they were early. The early bird gets the worm, Nola cried. Frank nodded. You got it now, Missy, he said. Pablo yawned.
She had sprung forward an hour when everybody else had fallen back an hour. That meant she and Pablo were now 2 hours ahead of everybody else. For once in their lives, they were early. The early bird gets the worm, Nora cried. Frank nodded. You got it now, Missy, he said. Pablo
It was all a big mistake, but it turned out to be a great mistake. It's why they rode in the parade on Frank's float. That year and every year since.
It was a big mistake, but it turned out to be a great mistake. It's why they rode in the parade on Frank's float that year and every year since.
It's also why, from that day to this, Nola has made sure to be early for everything. 2 minutes early, though, not 2 hours.
It's also why from that day to this, Nora has made sure to be early for everything. 2 minutes early, though not 2 hours.